Long ago, in the rugged, sun-drenched hills of ancient Israel, a young shepherd named David lived a life dictated by the seasons and the needs of his flock. Under a wide, starlit sky, he tended his father's sheep. He wasn't the oldest or the strongest of his brothers, and he certainly wasn't the most likely to make history. In fact, when the great prophet Samuel came to anoint the next king, David was the one everyone forgot to call from the fields. But even if his family overlooked him, heaven hadn't. David's world was beautifully simple. It was flocks and fields, music and prayer. He would string melodies on his harp as he watched over his sheep, composing songs about a faithful God who watched over him in return. This quiet, daily rhythm of care and courage, practiced in solitude, was about to be tested in a way no one could have ever imagined. Meanwhile, miles away, a tense standoff was paralyzing the nation. Two armies faced one another across a valley: the Israelites and their fierce enemies, the Philistines. For 40 long days, one man had held both armies hostage with fear. His name was Goliath, a warrior from the city of Gath. He was a mountain of a man, towering nearly 10 feet tall, clad in heavy bronze armor. His shadow was long enough to blot out courage itself. Every morning and every evening, he would stride into the valley, his voice booming like thunder. "Send me a man to fight," he'd roar. And every morning and evening, Israel's soldiers would shrink back, their hearts heavy with dread, their spears trembling in their hands. The entire army was frozen, not by the Philistine forces, but by one man's terrifying presence. One seemingly ordinary morning, back in the quiet hills, David's father gave him a simple task. He was to go to the battlefield, not to fight, but to deliver bread and cheese to his older brothers who were serving in the army. It was just an errand, just another day. But as we all know, destiny often hides inside the ordinary, as David arrived at the camp. The familiar taunting words of Goliath echoed across the valley. The giant's voice dripped with contempt, mocking not just Israel's army but their God. David froze, but not from fear. It was from a profound sense of disbelief and righteous anger. He turned to the soldiers nearby and asked, "Who is this man that he dares to defy the armies of the living God?" His brothers, seeing him, were annoyed. "Go back to your sheep, David. What are you even doing here? You don't belong on a battlefield." They saw a naive boy out of his depth, but the fire inside David wouldn't be quieted. Faith and indignation stirred together within him, a holy defiance born not of pride, but of a deep, unshakable trust in something greater than himself. News of this shepherd boy's bold words traveled quickly through the anxious camp, eventually reaching King Saul himself. The king summoned David. When David arrived, Saul took one look at the young, unassuming boy and nearly laughed. You? You want to fight him? You're only a boy." But David stood his ground, his voice steady. "Your Majesty," he said, "your servant has faced lions and bears when they came for my father's flock. I fought them and saved the sheep. The same God who delivered me from the claws of the lion and the bear will deliver me from the hands of this giant." A hush fell over the tent. Saul looked at the boy, at the unwavering conviction in his eyes. Slowly, the king nodded. "Go," he said, "and the Lord be with you." They tried to equip David with Saul's own royal armor, the heavy bronze helmet, the weighty breastplate, the massive sword, but it was no use. The armor hung from his young shoulders like cast-off metal dreams. Clank, slide. It was impossible. David took it off, piece by piece. "I cannot fight in what doesn't fit me," he explained. "I haven't tested these." Instead, he reached for what he knew. He walked to a nearby stream and chose 5 smooth stones, polished by the flowing water. They were simple, ordinary stones. He placed them in his shepherd's bag and took up his most trusted tool, his sling. It was just smooth leather, worn by constant use. With these humble weapons, he stepped out of the Israelite camp and walked down into the valley to face the giant. The Philistine army jeered. Goliath lumbered forward, each heavy step shaking the earth like thunder. He looked down at the boy approaching him with nothing but a stick and a sling. "Am I a dog?" His voice rolled like an avalanche, "that you come at me with sticks?" He cursed David by his gods. David's reply rang out, clear and fearless, across the valley. "You come against me with a sword and a spear and a javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." Then David did something extraordinary. He ran forward. There was no hesitation, no half-steps. He ran toward the danger. With a single fluid motion, he placed a stone in his sling and whirled it through the air. Time itself seemed to hold its breath. There was a sharp whistle, then a sickening crack. The stone sank deep into Goliath's forehead. The giant staggered, his eyes wide with disbelief. For a moment he swayed on his feet, a monument of bronze and brute force, undone by a pebble. Then he collapsed face first into the dust. One heartbeat changed everything. The entire valley fell silent. The jeers of the Philistines died in their throats. And then a sound began to build from the Israelite side, a rumble that grew into a roar of victory. David, the forgotten shepherd boy, stood victorious over the fallen giant. The very people who had overlooked him, who had told him to go back to his sheep, now saw the incredible courage that faith had stirred in him all along. But the true victory that day wasn't the sling or the stone. It was the powerful demonstration that our faith can be greater than our fear. It was proof that the smallest person, armed with trust, can topple the tallest obstacle. From that day on, David's life unfolded into a grand epic of challenge and triumph, of heartbreak and grace. But this single moment, the stone, the courage, the unwavering faith became an eternal symbol for every person who dares to trust when everything looks impossible. So when fear looms like a giant in your own life, when the challenges seem insurmountable, remember David, remember that unseen courage often grows in the quiet places among the sheep during the ordinary days, in the faithful waiting. And when your moment comes, don't be afraid to step into your own valley. Trust what you know, trust your sling, trust in something greater than yourself. Because when you do, the giant always falls. Thank you for watching. If this story inspired you, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that explores the power of faith and courage. We'll see you in the next video.